Welcome to Weekends with Whitney. On today's show, A Tale from the Bayou. The Baton Rouge Ballet Theater's one-of-a-kind production of The Nutcracker. Dancing azaleas, dancing dolls, dancing bears, and so much more. Behind the scenes on what it takes to create this magical production. Then, Home for Christmas, how some special volunteers are working tirelessly to get flood victims back home for the holidays. Then DR.NICK on exclusion, the painful reality of ostracizing anyone. But first, next weekend, a holiday tradition returns. The Nutcracker, A Tale from the Bayou. It's the only one of its kind in the world. Meet the women who make it happen. For more than a quarter century, thousands of dancers, under the direction of Sharon Matthews and Molly Buckman, bring magic to the stage for Christmas. Renee Stelzer first danced in this production when she was 8. She's been a lamb, a bonbon, an angel, and a dancer in snow and flowers. Now 32 years old, she's in it again.
It's just such a wonderful thing to be part of. It doesn't feel like Christmas without the Nutcracker. I know I won't be able to dance in it forever, so I do it because I can still. They let me. So I would love to do it for as long as I can.
13-year-old Vivian Dill was also a bonbon and last year a soldier. But this year, she's in the starring role of Clara.
I saw it when I was young, but I never really thought that I'd get it. But it was exciting when I did.
It's also been a lot of work. Nearly every day since October, Vivian's been in rehearsals. What's the hardest part?
Just the bruised toenails and the blisters. It just hurts after a while.
Artistic director Molly Buckman says Vivian landed the role on talent.
If someone gets a part, it is always going to be because we believe they were the best person for that part, for no other reason.
You don't play favorites?
Well, people would think we do, but our favorites are the ones who are the best.
Because the audience deserves nothing less.
I always have a responsibility to the art. The responsibility is not to the parent or to the child, but to the art. Do the best I can to help them become artists, to do the best I can to put something artful on the stage, to put the best thing on the stage for the audience.
This audience gets a Nutcracker like no other. Molly and Sharon gave one of the world's most beloved ballets, Louisiana Luster, backdrops of a cabin on the bayou, the old state capitol, and Oak Alley Plantation. From the choreography to the costumes, it's uniquely Louisiana.
We love the full,
Yes.
the big full production. It's called the Nutcracker, A Tale from the Bayou, and sometimes people call saying, I don't want this little Nutcracker, I want the big grand Nutcracker. And we say that's what this is. We wanted to make something really big and lasting for Baton Rouge.
To make it even bigger, in the last 10 years, they added the Baton Rouge Symphony.
That's really special when there's a big orchestra in the pit and you come into the theater and you hear them warming up. And this is a chance for someone to see live music and live theater and dance all in one event and get the Christmas spirit and all of that at once. I always say it's like a window into the arts when you're young, because you go to it, it's big and beautiful.
It's good training for the dancers too.
For a dancer, it's really wonderful to have the experience of dancing with live music, because it really keeps you hate to say it, on your toes, but it really makes you think quickly, and you never know the speed. Maybe the orchestra will speed up or slow down, or it'll sound different than what you've been rehearsing to for many months, and so you'll have to know how to quickly adjust and stay on the music and adapt.
Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite premiered in St. Petersburg, Russia, exactly 125 years ago this month. It wasn't until 50 years later that it first was performed in the U.S. But it was George Balanchine's version for the New York City Ballet that sent its popularity soaring, and ballet companies everywhere solvent.
So many companies in America, in the United States, do the Nutcracker, and it is the mainstay of their season. It's what really pulls in box office and helps you pay for your organization to operate all year long and do all the other things it does, like go into the community, into the schools, and serve so many people and help this next generation of dancers as well. The Nutcracker doesn't pay for all that, but it helps support itself, and it helps keep us on a sound financial footing so that we can do all the things that we do.
Last year's historic flood put the ballet in the red. Nutcracker ticket sales took a downturn, along with donations.
Last year was a hard year for us, but I know that Nutcracker ticket sales are doing better than last year, so that's wonderful. I think both for us and as a sign for the community. Hopefully people are healing, mending.
They could have cut corners to make up for last year's deficit, but they're not. They're flying in guest artists Alison Stroming from Dance Theatre of Harlem and Aaron Smith from Australia.
Who's been with Royal Ballet in London and with American Ballet Theatre, and people know him from the Australian So You Think You Can Dance. He was here 2 years ago, and when we announced he was coming back this year at the board meeting, there were a lot of people who were clapping. They like him. They think he's cute. He's really a beautiful dancer and a good partner for Alison.
This will be the 26th year for A Tale from the Bayou. It's exceeded expectations.
And did you ever think it would be all of this?
No, I didn't.
Not bad for two dancers who met at LSU and opened their studio in their 20s.
No one works harder than Sharon, and always has. And she's raised 3 beautiful daughters in the studio who are and have been beautiful dancers. I had sons.
They've now been in the ballet business 40 years.
I meant to stay only 40 years.
Well, what happened? Did you lose count?
I don't know what happened. I forgot to count the last couple of years.
What's counted most for these two women is they could always count on each other.
We are good at different things. We are opposites in many, many ways, and I think that has been one thing that has kept us working together.
Was she also going to retire after 40 years?
Oh, no, she's never going to retire.
Together, they've helped thousands bloom into accomplished artists and live their dreams. Some have gone on to Juilliard, performed on Broadway, and danced their way around the world.
I'm proud of what we've done. I'm happy for the dancers who have had a place to dance. And like Molly Rushing and Whitney Dufresne and all these people who've gone on to do things. I'm proud we were able to give them that.
Dancing gives everyone something.
Some will go on and become dancers, most will not. But they will have developed this incredible skill, this love of this classical art, classical music, this ability to work together as a team, as a group, this ability to present yourself, to get on stage and take the focus and be comfortable with it. These are things that will help them in everything they do.
300 dancers ages 8 to 80 will hit the stage next weekend, and they're saving a seat for you.
We always have seats. Sometimes people think we're sold out, but there are always seats left.
And there is always snow. Like today, your chances of seeing it are 100%.
On the stage and in the audience. What could be more magical for our little Louisiana Clara than a snowy oak alley in snow?
Ticket prices range from $25 to $58, and remember, there is always a seat available. Here's how to do it. Go to Ticketmaster.com. Now, you will see some other websites that sell tickets, but those are by scalpers and they will inflate the price, and sometimes those websites are sold out. But Ticketmaster, Molly assures us, will always have a seat for you. You have 4 performances to choose from: 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. Now, if you buy your ticket last minute, your best seat selection will likely be in the Sunday 6 p.m. performance. But buy as early as you can, because of course then you'll have just a better selection to choose from. And still ahead, how volunteers are racing to get more flood victims home for Christmas, and the many ways you can help too. Then DR.NICK on the real physical pain of being ostracized. Why it's more than our emotions that suffer. After this. Welcome back to Weekends with Whitney. It's almost hard to believe, but 40 to 50,000 Louisianians are still not back in their homes 16 months after the historic flood. Well, meet some volunteers on a mission to get as many people home for Christmas as possible. This is the best Miss Judy's house has looked in 16 months, and it has a long way to go. Brandy Brignac and these other volunteers are trying to get her back in by Christmas.
We're gonna have it done. There's 3 or 4 amazing women that work with us every day, and we are knocking the junk out of these houses.
Judy and all her neighbors had to evacuate in the August historic flood.
The water was so high up, it was all the way up to my waist.
3 feet of water filled her home.
My neighbor next door knocked on the door and told me to get whatever I can get to get out, because the water was rising. It was high.
The Cajun Navy came to her rescue.
Oh, there are some good people.
The Cajun Army gutted her home. Wanda Cannon and her Cajun Navy team are putting it back together.
We do the work for the people, and we don't do it for glory. We do the work for the people, and it's from our hearts.
These volunteers know the heartache. They flooded too. Wanda's trailer is now livable, but just barely.
And I just work helping people during the day, and I go home and work at night at my house.
After the recent floods in Texas, she went there too.
I was supposed to go for about 3 hours, and I stayed there 3 weeks.
Even with Crohn's disease, Wanda's unstoppable.
I get tired, I take a break, my body tells me, or I wind up in the hospital whenever I don't listen. But then I get out and I start back again. It's a passion.
They don't get any money for doing this. They're paying it forward.
There's no greater payment than to see somebody be able to come in their house or make entry to their house or whatever it is. Like that's the payment. You know, it's giving back, it's helping.
Judy got a little help from the Shelter for Home program, but can't nail down a contractor.
I've been waiting on the other people and they hadn't came yet.
It's a waiting game for thousands more, all in the same boat.
Feel good, because I thank God that they're doing this house.
For Wanda, it is a God thing.
God, He gives us the strength to keep going, and every homeowner that we meet becomes family.
Eventually, I believe that everything comes around, you know, and we've all needed a little help at some point in our lives. I'm almost positive Miss Judy is going to be home for Christmas. Like, we are going to bust our tails and do everything we can to get her in this house.
Here, they've nailed the spirit of Christmas. It truly is the season of giving. And still ahead, Dr. Nick. If your feelings have been hurt by being excluded, why it affects far more than your emotions, as Weekends with Whitney continues. Atlas Foundation Repair, fixing your foundation problems for more than 30 years while preserving and protecting your trees. Welcome back to Weekends with Whitney. Did you know that being ostracized or excluded can be more painful than a physical injury? Dr. Nick joins us this morning with more. It's great to see you.
Good morning, Whitney. Ostracized.
Yes,
Interesting word.
It is. And we've all been there.
We've all been there.
We've all felt excluded.
I was no jock when I was growing up. I mean, how many people can talk about the childhood pain of being last to be picked? If picked at all.
Right.
You know, or made fun of when dribbling or throwing a ball. I used to have this great phrase that I would use when I was younger. I reject rejection, and you know, because it's very similar to being ostracized.
Sure.
It is pushed out, blackballed.
Blackballed.
Isn't that another phrase we
Sure.
could use?
Yes.
Blackballed.
Yeah. Sometimes it happens in the work environment. You know, this little group's going out to lunch and they never invite you, or they used to invite you and now they don't invite you, or they don't see you, you know, having your lunch at your desk, and just not being included. It's hurtful. But
it's very hurtful.
What was shocking to me is, in reading this study, is that it's I'm not going to get all the right, but it's the caudal anterior cortex, or that part of the brain.
That part of the brain that experiences pain.
That registers pain to the rest of your body. When you are ostracized, it registers that kind of pain
it's
too.
Emotional pain.
Yeah.
Well, I think because there's a human propensity and a human almost necessity to be connected. And ostracized is being disconnected, being pushed out, or not letting in.
Right.
So you can imagine what's going on when I'm not in, I'm out.
Sure. And can I say something here too? And because I'm not defending anybody, I think I love an inclusive world, and I love people who say, "Come on, anybody who wants to go, let's go." I think that's lovely. But let's admit, we've all worked with someone in the work environment who is so annoying that you're like, okay, if I invite that person, it's going to completely ruin lunch. They're going to either, you know, dominate the conversation or say inappropriate things. And I really want to have lunch with these pals and maybe talk about something, and they'll ruin it. I feel guilty to say that, but that has happened to me before. And I don't know. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's so hard. And maybe
it is hard, but I would tend to think that the adult response, and Lord knows I'm not necessarily the best at it, would be that person probably at least needs to be told.
Oh.
There needs to be some kind of feedback that says, I just really need for you to know this is one of the struggles I have with you being with us.
Wow. That's really adult.
Not really ostracizing or rejecting. That is saying that your behaviors, and maybe you don't intend them, maybe are all about you. You talk about you, or you're always criticizing, or you're always negative. I think you bring up a very important issue, because I think that's real.
Yeah.
That there really are people that we just don't want to hang with. I was just thinking, remember 9 to 5, the movie with Dolly Parton? They ostracized her. The two ostracized her because they thought she was sleeping with the boss.
Right.
See, we also have to deal with the fact that, you know, we can make judgments on people that are not true. We can be gossipy, which is, I think girls are great at that when they're growing up.
Yeah.
That's how girls bully, is pushing other girls out.
You're right.
You know, which is a real problem, I think, in schools that we sometimes forget about. It's not just boys that bully.
Yeah.
Because ostracizing is a form of bullying.
It is.
It's a form of bullying. But the other side of it too, though, Whitney, I think we need to be fair to how life works. I may be trying to join a group that I don't need to join. I may be trying to fit in to a group that really is not going to be good for me. Or it's not. Does that make, you know, we might think, you know, if I'm in this group, I'll be somebody, or I'll be more valuable, or I'll feel better, more self-worth. When it's like, what? Go be with people you like.
Right.
You know, if you're comfortable with artists who are hippie-ish and free-spirited, then go do that instead of trying to be with high-structured
CEOs,
coffee drinking, mahjong playing. Again, no offense to any of these groups,
right?
But we sometimes try to fit in where we don't really need to be.
Yeah, I get it. And if I can, please let me go back just real quickly when you
Sure.
said that for that annoying person that maybe you don't want to include.
Okay.
To say something absolutely terrifies me because I would be so afraid of hurting that person's feeling. However, it's probably the kindest, most loving thing that we can do.
It is.
And it just struck me that when you were talking about maybe we're trying to be in a group that we shouldn't belong into, is that person who perhaps we say dominates the conversation or says things inappropriate or tells horrible off-color jokes, they might do it out of their own nervousness, right?
Good.
Like they're just so excited to be there or anxious about making the right impression that they just go about it all wrong.
Go about it all
I think I've probably done that in my lifetime several times.
Very true, very true. And again, the real love, as you said, the real act of kindness is letting someone know maybe something that they don't know.
It's hard to hear.
That they were not even aware of. If someone's constantly talking, remember we were talking about likability one week.
That's right.
You know, some people just are not very likable, and we have to challenge them to, you know, look at some of these skills that might help you become more likable. It's tough.
It is tough.
But it's real love.
Yes,
it's
it
real
is.
love.
And I remember one easy one from that stays with me. Talk less, listen more. Which again, for anyone that's a little annoying to us, even ourselves, is always great advice.
Every group has a culture, or is a culture. And sometimes it's important, if it doesn't, to establish norms and rules.
Really?
We're going to
How
play.
so?
We're just going to have fun today.
Okay.
We get together to have fun, not to talk about our problems or the problems of the world. In this group, we don't bring up politics because we know that it pushes so many different buttons.
Okay.
Or if we do bring up politics, we're going to always do it respectfully.
Okay.
So you can set norms so that the group itself kind of finds its own formation. Because groups have to form, and then they have a little storming, we call it.
Okay.
And then there's conforming.
Storming
Have you ever
and
heard
conforming?
that?
No.
Forming, storming, and conforming. It's kind of how groups come. I didn't mean to get off the ostracizing, but I think
But
it's
it involves
important.
groups often.
Well, don't you have values in your family? And you say, this is the way we do things.
Sure.
Or this is the way we talk to people. Or that's not acceptable in this house. Hitting, let's say, for instance.
Of course.
You know, it's not acceptable to always be thinking of yourself.
But I never
Think
thought
of
about saying
others.
those type of things in a group setting, but with friends
You
or
can say-
coworkers. But
What
it's
you're
a great
saying,
idea.
You're just playing the game.
Okay.
You know what I used to ask people all the time? Would you play Monopoly without knowing the rules?
No.
Would you really want to sit down with me and play Monopoly and say, and I'm like, Whitney, I've never played before. That's fine. Let's just start playing. You would say, well, this is the way it's done.
Sure.
I really think that we could use a lot more of this is the way it's done. And I think, if I may be so bold, fraternities and sororities would do well to think back what their mission is.
Right.
And how things ought to be said and done. Mm-hmm. There's a place for those kind of groups on colleges. But I think sometimes we really miss what's it for.
Yeah.
It's not for, what is it, hazing?
Hazing.
That's not what it's about. It's not about she's better than her, or we're all together.
You're right.
Connected.
You're right. Yeah, it's about developing leadership, about making connections, about
Did you
having
ever-
a family away from home. I mean, that's what
Did you ever experience or do any kind of ostracizing at Ole Miss?
Did I? Oh, I hope not.
I bet you didn't.
But I will tell
But I
you,
bet you there
going
was
through
a
sorority rush, I certainly felt ostracized by a couple of sororities.
Did you?
Oh yeah, rejection. You know, cut, not invited back to
And-
this party, and you just go.
And going back to the brain, that hurts.
That hurts.
And the article, I think, was saying you try to fit in by coping by being nicer, right? I'm using
Right.
the sorority thing.
Yeah.
Or you get more aggressive with maybe the people who are ostracizing.
Or your behavior
you just-
changes to try to get attention.
Yes. Yeah. That try to get somehow either through aggression or sweetness, which really doesn't work because you're not yourself. Although, I mean, you're sweet, but you don't want to kind of not be yourself. And then you kind of resign yourself. Well, that's the two that.
Yeah.
You don't like the word resignation, but it talks about resignation, resigning oneself, accepting the fact, well, they don't like me. She doesn't like me.
And
She doesn't like me.
And what a challenge for all of us to be okay with that.
And you know what else?
Tell me.
There are people I don't like. And there are people I bet you don't like. I'm not saying I'm going to ostracize them, but I have the right not to like them.
Right. Right.
And if I don't feel comfortable with them, I have the right not to be there in their presence. It probably would behoove me to tell them why, because I might be helpful. But I have to decide if it's worth the energy.
Right. Right. Yeah, I get it.
God, we could just go on for Well, I mean, these are really, don't you think they're real?
Yes, because we've all been there.
Aren't there people you don't like?
There are
I
a
know
few.
you probably like everybody. But and the reason why I say that is if I can be honest with myself, then I can also be honest with the fact that maybe there are people that don't like me.
Right.
And that's okay too.
Right.
But let's just remind people to be aware and sensitive that we're all sensitive. And we can have our feelings hurt, and not for us to intentionally not to reject people.
Right.
Or push them out.
And that-
or keep them out.
All right.
Be good, everybody.
More Weekends with Whitney after this. Atlas Foundation Repair, fixing your foundation problems for more than 30 years while preserving and protecting your trees. Thanks for sharing your time with us here on Weekends with Whitney. We hope to see you back here again next week. Until then, we leave you with this.